Hello and welcome to the Seren Stay-at-Home series archive. This video features Eoghan Walls reading from his collection Pigeon Songs, which was recently shortlisted for the Pigeon Poetry Prize. We hope you enjoy watching it back.
Hello, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for coming along. I'm Amy from Seren Press. Very happy to be here today. I have a very quick little anecdote because something very strange and wonderful happened to me today that turned out to be very prophetic for this event tonight. I was sitting at my desk, quietly as I do at home, when I heard a lot of strange flapping. And surely enough, I walked down the hallway and there was a big fat pigeon sitting on top of the door to my spare bedroom. It had flown in through an open window. And I screamed and it probably flew out. But I think that was a very prophetic experience about the night. I suddenly thought about it later on. I was like, of course, the pigeons are visiting me. It's time to have Eoghan Walls read some of his poems. We published Eoghan's first book called The Salt Harvest a few years ago. And we've just published the new one, which is called Pigeon Songs. Eoghan is from Derry. A lot of you will know that. His Welsh connection is that he went to Atlantic College. So we can flag for Atlantic College in the Vale a little bit. Seren published his new book. And what else can we say about Eoghan? He's a lecturer at Lancaster University. Though right now, I think he's probably teaching from home. Am I right? Yes. And I can't wait to hear him read some of his strange and magnificent poetry. Eoghan, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming, guys. I know it's weird. My subscription fee is almost on par with Netflix a month, and I give a lot less content, which I realize is, on the other hand, I can guarantee you I'm slightly odder than most of Netflix. Slightly. I don't know what to read, so I'm going to start off with a poem I wish I had written slightly differently. It's the third poem in Pigeon Songs, the book, and it's called The Universal Blues. And I was trying to base it around a blues beat, but I didn't dare write the first line of every verse twice. I'm going to read it now twice. I'm not going to sing it to you. I should, but I won't. I'm going to read it twice and see if it works as a blues song. The Universal Blues. This town is a layered skyline of 20 shades of blue, with blue faces at blue windows under a bright blue moon. There's a blue girl in a room where the TV spills bad news. There's a blue girl in a room where the TV spills bad news across the bare arse of a man who did what he came to do. Blue is the deoxygenated blood in the lining of her cervix. Blue, the deoxygenated blood in the lining of her cervix, as white spunk headbutts the future in a frenzy of aquarobics. It's hard to whisper blues with him spread-eagled on the sofa. Yes, it's hard to whisper blues with him spread-eagled on the sofa, or to reckon your every cell was once the heart of a supernova. This town is just a bell curve with us swelling in the middle. Yes, this town is just a bell curve with us swelling in the middle, watching our gas bills and P45s pile up on the coffee table. But the sperm is a mad sine wave in this universe of blue. Yes, the sperm is a mad sine wave in this universe of blue. And the egg is a tight blue nova. And once, the egg was you. Shall I do the sonnet sequence? Quick hands. You want a sonnet sequence? Okay, let's start in the sonnet sequence. Sonnet sequence, I discovered that I write an awful lot about birth and kids. And I know that's, well, in some ways it's quite, I don't think many men write as much about it as I do, but I understand as well that can be quite off-putting for A, people who don't have kids, or B, people who are stuck at home at the minute with their kids and hate them. So if you hate children, as I do a lot, or at least quite often, if you hate children, imagine the children in these poems are metaphors for, I don't know, pigs or love. This one is called, I'm going to read the sonnet sequence. Have you all heard the sonnet sequence before? Okay, well, let's go then. It's a series of 7 sonnets about miscarriage. I might not read them all. I was getting the train a lot, and we lost quite a few babies when I lived in Scotland. And I know it's not the saddest thing to happen to anyone, but we were pretty sad about it. And so these are poems that try to look through that and understand it. The first one, they're also all connected to trains. The first one's called The Last Connection. The way I came to get my next connection meant me hoofing it through central Glasgow on a night the city was populated by ghosts. Pale waifs in heels used flyers for protection from the rain. Blue couples held conversations in pizza parlour windows. I stormed the road, head down, collar up, trying to light a smoke, and nearly tripped into my mother at the station. I hugged her, damp. There was so much to ask her about miscarriages, our trouble buying a home, the taste of the earth. She listened to me, tender, but she had some place to be. I watched her go, zipping between the buses along Queen Street, and I caught the 9:41 for Aberdeen. My mother's dead. I guess I should have told you that if you don't know her. I won't read all of these. This is about when we first discovered that we were losing a baby. And I don't know if you've ever seen a train that's supposed to cut. Every year, most train companies, I guess, in the world, at least the ones in Scotland, would cut the trees along the side of the train track. And the machine that does that is an incredible beast. It has chainsaws and mechanical arms that come out and chop it. And if you ever see the thing, you will appreciate many Marvel movies more. And this one is called Tree Surgeons on the Aberdeen Line. You woke one night to railway tree surgeons, giving the trees by the track their yearly trim, with their hybrid carriage of mechanical limbs. It was half like Megatron of the Decepticons and half a visitation of the Archangel Metatron, wailing sawdust with jazzy chainsaw hymns, whimsically tearing up the trees around him, just as it all kicked off in your abdomen. You watched the surgeons in their orange vests chuck sapling after sapling into the chipper and asked me what they did with fallen nests. I stayed in bed, watching you in your slippers, with a silhouette so stark against the window, for one brief moment I thought it was a halo. Okay, we'll do a couple more of these. When all the men turned into geese, of course this is a reference in the poem towards the end to Leda and the Swan, or in this case Leda and the Goose, but it's about the idea, we've all thought about it, what would happen if all the men in the world turned into geese. After the emergency breaks and the after throws, the feathered necks fluting from their collars, the weepy wife clutching the webbed flipper of her ex-husband struggling with his clothes. After the flock billowed at the train window, clacking beaks until one thoughtful daughter splashed the glass with a red plastic hammer and they took off like the opposite of snow. Leda watched the wild black skies of Dundee as the honking swathes grew extraterrestrial and felt her womb clench in its shell of muscle, suspecting a backlash from the new economy, unable to guess the motives of these creatures or what kind of thing she bore into what future. This one is called Between the Lines. I'm skipping a few. Between the Lines is a sonnet. It's got some curse words in it. So they're in line, if your scansion is good, you can close your ears in line 6 and line 11. It's a sonnet composed entirely of signs taken from Lancaster train station. And it's a love sonnet. And it's all written on the walls of Lancaster train station. Between the lines. No smoking anywhere in this station. Transport police are located at platform 3. Please retain your ticket for inspection. The station is monitored by CCTV. Passengers, keep behind the yellow line. Shannon suck sticks. Cyclists, dismount. Keep your luggage with you at all times. Do not use lift once fire alarm sounds. Attention, danger, overhead live wires. Bicycles must be removed by 18th of July. Deck is a cunt. Break glass in case of fire. In emergency, press here and await reply. Keep clear, fire escape, keep left, way out. Shannon plus deck forever. Preston and South. Okay. This one is called 2 half-inchling. It's a sonnet to the child we lost. And I know that's weird. And I know it's weird to write to a baby that never grew past 3 months, but it's called 2 half-inchling. There is a world where your cells multiplied, like the atoms in the heart of a star, exploding into eyes and heartbeats, where I would sing impatient twinkle twinkles long after midnight, the bottle in your face, where you were baptized with a name more permanent than half-inchling or nearly was, or 3-monther, wee not thing, clot angel, Sean Angus, or Schrodinger's child. A world where you grew into your full potential, debating your right to picket angry commuters, lipsticking napkins with your name and number, where you grew into more than a clump of cells and grunts overheard outside the bathroom door, where it would have been legitimate to mourn. I had to commute a lot when I was writing these poems, and I would be away from home for 4 or 5 days a week and getting long, 5, 6, 7 hour train journeys, and you'd miss home. And so this is the last of these sequences, especially when the wife was losing a child and I couldn't get there quickly. This is the last poem of the sonnet sequence. I've skipped a couple. You can see the rest in the book. This one's called Sweeney Song. Sweeney, of course, being the mad Irish king who turned into a bird. And it's got my favourite opening line in the book, and possibly most of poetry. I like the opening line. We'll see what you think. Last night, I dreamt I had a second penis. A nestling chick. I knew it was the baby's. Though I knew it was going to leave us and slowly get reabsorbed into my body, there was a comfort to it. The night before, I did my weights in the blue light of the telly, working my triceps and flight muscles sore as you flickered between 2 foreign movies. Tonight, I've stuck my head outside the train with Dundee's lights splattered on the river, my hair plastered to my skull like feathers, and I am barking like a gander in the rain. There's so much of this world I do not know, but I'm coming home. I'm coming home. I have lots of other poems to read. I thought I would flick a bit through the old book and then some new work. Can I do new work first? Is that okay? Oh, I've only got it on the screen, so I'm kind of covering your faces. So if you've got something urgent to gesture now. Okay, no, you've all missed your chance. Let me get it up. Some of these are weird. I've been working on a lot of other work, mainly translating Heidegger and doing a novel. I'll read a couple of these. So many sad poems about losing kids, but then we went and after I wrote most of the book, after all the book, the wife got pregnant again. We didn't think it was possible, and we were surprised. And so I wrote this poem. It's based on Shakespeare's Sonnet 31, but so this one's called Sonnet 31b. And it's about light in flesh and how light moves through flesh. I know, it sounds corny. I like the poem. See what you think. So love might be understood as light in flesh, lightening us the way a torch pinkens a fist, the same way the sea's light holds up a jellyfish. Observe, for example, the firefly heart of Christ, flickering and buzzing over the translucent skin of a dying nun, promising such bioluminescence as would inflame her like a candle in a pumpkin. Such love is not the sole property of the reverent. Consider yourself now, sunbathing in the park with your t-shirt rolled up, and how our fetus stretches in the glow of your near-opaque heart, your liver's graze, suspended like stained glass, of permeating the red cathedral of your skin that I would enter, that you would hold me in. That's a bit rude. I'm going to read a very rude one now, but at least this one's for Kieran McCafferty, I guess. It's based on, well, for any boy who went to the college in Derry, or anybody who ever went to a boys' school or is taught in a boys' school. I beg your pardon for the rude moments. I don't just be rude because I enjoy it. I mean, of course, there's a puerile element to me. I get you, but I think often looking, isn't it all about death and sex, isn't it? I mean, so this poem's called, I've given many titles. I think Dicks is the only title you can give it. And if you've been to a boys' school, you'll see how they love drawing them everywhere. Well, we'll see what the poem says. Dicks. There was little on which we did not draw a dick, compassing grey paint off lockers, etching desks, but mostly inking each other's files or textbooks. The apostles waving cocks over the Sea of Galilee, Tybalt unleashing a terrible shower on poor Juliet, the Colossus swung on the tactical map of Gallipoli, some veined and ridged, some rushed like signatures, as if we were laying our own marks over the world, our tears of spunk over the black and white empire. Not like in a shower room, where we held towels in a puppet show over our small clusters of berries, scuttling through scalding water like guinea fowl. Even Big Jerry, who we knew swung the long strap of a full-grown man, would cave in round himself when the teacher scraped his boots on the doorstop. Let's see, one more new one. This one's called Sequels, and it's a sequel to a poem we wrote before. And it's about other stuff too, I guess, kids again, how they're like sequels to us. Sequels. Everything is haunted as we run to our car up the beach, wet to our pants as rain rolls in sheets on the windscreen. The metronome slash of the wipers haunts our heartbeats, the way the end of the 39 steps haunts the end of Shanghai Nights in a shootout in the bowels of Big Ben, the way your hand on the dashboard ghosts piano lessons. And the storm is haunted by monsoons and fraying ozone, a sequel of the mad rains that flooded us out of our home the October a whole family slipped off a pier in Inishowen. So I lean on the gear stick and plant your neck with a kiss, a sequel of every other kiss, and you turn to me, surprised, kissing me back. The kids rattle in their seats, lampooning us, yammering, so I flip the light and look up to see their eyes oscillate in the rear view mirror from my eyes to your eyes, ticking on towards another universe, much wetter than this. I'm going to see your faces now, so if there's disgust or urgent gestures, nobody's drowning. My time, oh God, we still have time. We still have time. I could segue very neatly into some poems from my last collection, so I will do so. Again, I'd like, I beg your pardon, of a cover territory that I've read before, so I'm going to try to read some I don't normally read. I haven't read this in a while. The last poem ended up talking about the next universe, much wetter than this. And I know this is a poetry reading in the apocalypse. We're living in at least an apocalypse, if not the apocalypse. It's perhaps not the big apocalypse, but it's a small apocalypse of sorts. So I'm going to write about the big one, which obviously is going to be where we all drown instead of die of coffee. It's called The Long Horizon, and this is from my last book, The Salt Harvest. That's actually a picture taken from the apocalypse on the front. The Long Horizon. It's about when, well, you'll see what it's about. When all has been said and done and what remains is submergence, our bookshelves mulched and cathode ray tubes cracked under pressure, and a coelacanth noses our skulls on the carpet as it gums the last fibres, the freezer a click with live crabs and the windows gone back into sand, as an octopus wraps itself around the steering wheel of our van and thrusts out great billows of rust where the light fathoms slowly over a copse of dead oaks, given up to the brown limbs of algae, and the horse in its trap is hollowed by seahorses into an ornament, having waited too long for an arc, and dust rolls through radio silence reflected from satellites forever in orbit with no landing signal, and the waves have nowhere to crash except for the odd mountain steeple, and the last nesting gulls batter and fry as the lightning grounds, and there is no more word for rain when the only recognizable sound is the sounding of bells, slower than whale song as the tides keep rising, with floating canopies of corpses that give up their gas and then sink past the curious mouths of fish on the long drop back to the cities, and the Leviathan rolls in Hyde Park beneath a waterlogged sky, and jellyfish parachute over Tokyo in the wartime flash of an eel. Then tell me whose fingers will indent our daughter's ribs as her heels dance the mad dance of the Jesus Christ lizard, hurling the troughs and the waves in the settling night down onto her ramshackle cot with 2 handfuls of sushi. Who will praise her diligence? Bird strike. This is about taking a first flight with a child. Blue eyes at the moment. You know, of course, you need to know 2 facts for this poem. One is that I'm sure most of you know, I was really surprised when I found out that kids' eye colour doesn't settle for months and months in their life. My youngest, who's now 9 months old, they're still kind of hovering between brown and blue. That sounds wrong, but it's what they do. They don't settle on the colour until much later. Often at 6 months, I think. And the other fact is that there's a number of facts in this poem, but one of them is there was a flight that landed in, I think, late 2000s. There was a movie made about it. Flight 1549 that landed and no passengers died in it. Bird strike. Blue eyes at the moment, but your resting colour is yet undefined on our airport drive as we unsettle a murder of rooks from the roadside. Brown or rusted copper. You reach for their flight through the window, clutching and unclutching your hand as if groping through a feather pillow to find the body of a bird. You are restless. You were restless last night and will suckle and struggle in takeoff. You to both earache and flight until we are caught in the all-coloured, unblinking eye of the sun. I pray against bird strike. I have an idea why seagulls and pigeons nosedive the engines, shredding steel fans with their hollow bird bones, lost in an instant of red mist to claim their airways for their own. But I want you to live. I want you to defy me, bold and upright, staring out from a torrent of feathers in the wake of a pillow fight, brazen in your future. So I think of US Airways Flight 1549, both engines snagging on snow geese on the takeoff for North Carolina, as the pilot skimmed down on the icy Hudson, where his passengers and crew were lifted alive from the water. His eyes were a turbine of blues. At this point, I don't know. I normally feel like making a joke. Is everybody doing okay? Yeah? Is it anybody? I guess no toilet breaks. We're still quite early. We've got. See, I was told to read for 40 to 50 minutes, so we've still got quite a bit of time. Interesting. Let's see. Well, okay. I guess shall we go? I'm going to read some weird ones then. I can read some more from the last book as well. Should we get it weirder? What about, shall we have some sex poems? Is that okay? We've had a lot of kids. Let me try this one. This one I wrote for my sister Ashling for her wedding. I wrote a funny one for her wedding that I read, but this one is it's about trying to cope when it's just the two of you and everybody's sick and dying. So I guess it kind of fits. It's called Like Animals. There's probably a better version done. Do you remember that song, You and Me, Babe, Aren't Nothing But Animals, Let's Do It, like they do it on Discovery Channel? Do you remember that song? I guess. Okay, well, this, I guess, is my response to that song. It's not really, but I guess it's about similar issues. And it was for my sister's wedding. Like animals. On the worst days, where every breath is a pain, I hope you find each other in the small hours, lumbering in the cracked surfaces of your den, and come back for the old moves. One arm here, urgency dissolving heaviness from your torso, and the breath rises in your internal musculature, the way silt rises in an abandoned dovecote when it's windy outside and the dry air shakes one long vial thrumming through the stones, or the way manatees rise palely in shipwrecks, clenching their pallets on long kelp blooms, tugging the rigging until the tense stalks break, and after, stillness. All the badness will resume, but I hope you encounter each other once again before sinking back in the darkness of the room. Isn't that a horrible poem to give somebody for their wedding, isn't it? I'm glad I wrote the funny one. But no, do you know what? It's meant, really. I remember before I got married, everybody was saying, Jesus, don't get married, it'll be terrible. You'll kill yourself. And then there's the kids as well, don't have kids. And do you know what? It's all lies. It's been okay, actually. I mean, there's hard bits, but whenever things are predicted doom, they're not. They're livable, and look, we're living in the apocalypse. And here we are. I'm going to read another sex one then. About having sex and thinking you're too old for it. And I know that sounds ridiculous. It's called Visitors. It's about, I don't know if you've ever been to Egypt, I don't know, but I guess we're all like visitors in each other's bodies or in each other's countries. I know there's a colonial and subtext to that is awkward, but I think we are passing through. So it's about a trip, and theoretically it's about a trip to an Egyptian city, Luxor. Visitors. Unlacing her halter top, she said her flesh was silt, once plush with the pachyderm folds of a newborn, subsiding yearly from her submerged necropolis, stretching to a thin velar glaze across her bones. I sun-creamed her long brown nape and shoulders as she leafed the leaflets from the mummy exhibit, then joined the bare-skinned mobs invading Luxor, haggling bakshish and cigarettes with street kids. Later on, we exhibited our own bodies in the dark, our vellum plucked and pocked, our stretch marks like contour maps of cities sunk beneath our skin that laid bare the shady alleys we would get lost in, poking through each other's curios and spice stalls, puzzling over the glyphs and slogans on the walls. Now we get to the really weird ones. I beg your pardon, do feel free to go for a toilet break if you have to. I know how strange this all is, and thanks all for bearing with me this far. How I write a poem is that I kind of get an idea of an image that I harry and annoy, and I can't work out what it means, and I try to work out what it means. And of course, I was thinking of Easter at some point, and who owns Easter? Is it Jesus? Probably not. Well, I may, or the hare, the bunny, the rabbit, the Easter egg. How does the Easter egg come from the rabbit? I guess it's all. But I wanted to write about that. For some reason, Jesus and the hare seemed related to me, and I'm sure you all know what ekphrasis is. If you don't know what ekphrasis is, it's poems about pictures. Basically, it's probably simplifying it, but it's poems about pictures in response to pictures. The picture I had in my head was of Jesus and a rabbit, and kind of the standoff between them. But the picture didn't exist, so I made up the picture by a Russian artist, and this is a poem about that picture. and it's called Notes on Repin's Easter. Repin is the real Russian artist. Christ stumbles squinting past the rolled tombstone, one palm low to the hair in benediction or hunger. His eyes are the watery blue of Repin's deserter. Repin notes of the hare's eyes, Lama Sabachthani. Contra this, Philotian, here comes Christ the clown to breathe new life in her pelt like a balloon animal. Note the hare's red jowls. She has gorged on the cud of her flensed shank and slicked her jaws with foam. Repin notes the hare's breath is grass and blood infused with her own droppings and juniper berries. Christ's face is crowned with scabs, no visible halo. The hare's bloodied haunches tensed to bolt. Of the one, our dead flesh raised unto song eternal, slaked on his blood to burrow us free of the earth. Of the other, canny leverets outstripping the hounds, their pulses quickened in forms matte with afterbirth. Her bob is turned. Neither will relinquish the day. The greys in Christ's beard are the hare's greys. I know that one's weird. We'll have another rabbit. And then we'll have another rabbit and then we'll go to swallows. It's a lovely word in German, Vertrauen, which means primordial trust. And of course, when children are abused, that's the context it's often used in, that they lose their Vertrauen, their essential trust for life, for everything, that, you know, that they lose confidence in everything, that things are going to be okay, that society will work for them, that there's basically a positive force at the center of the world they live in, Vertrauen. And I think so I had to write a poem about it, and at the same time it was when we had lots of young kids and we saw a dead rabbit being mauled by dogs, and my kid had been bitten by a dog the same day. So Vertrauen. Dog bit. The child is distinguished from the leveret, not by the press of frozen peas or a sucked Kit Kat, but the way her howls soughing at the plasma screen, as the fear of death by dog and her bloodied knee fade to enlightenment in the glow of talking pigs, Cocoa Pops, or gestation periods of dinosaur eggs. Her breath steadying as ricocheted satellite signals spill through the cracked heavens in electric jingles. Unlike the bit leveret, shuddering under the briars, as greyhounds rough up the carcass of her mother, whose only shield is stillness. As her blood dries, she holds the branching horizons in her wide eyes, learning her atheism in the thorny greys of the sun, flat on the mud where she'll feed and fuck and run. I thought a lot about changing the last line to that one, but I stuck to my guns. I think I've not followed. I'm going to read one more, and then I think, do you want to ask questions or something? I can just keep reading as well. I can read through some from the older collection, but if some people want to pop in a question or ask for a poem, I can read it. Otherwise, I'll see. I'm going to go and read Swimming Lessons now, which is a poem about swimming lesson. It's also a poem about a bird dying in the garden. You'll see what it's about. I hope I don't give you too much of the story. Swimming Lessons. This morning, a thump declared a swallow's neck was broken below the big window. So, she demanded a swallow's burial in the furthest corner of the garden. And now she hangs like a carcass and watches her fingers bloat through her goggles, giving up on her breathless doggy paddle for limp drifting, only half afloat. Gone through the looking glass into pale underworlds of water, among the light particles and swollen legs, where she struggles to recall swallow Sams from earlier, how nests are made by swallows coating their tongues in mud, how autumn looses typhoons of swallows into oceanic squalls, but odd fledglings bounce from headbutts to swing between the earth and air. At the sight of her gutty father, she needs breath, shoulder blades twisting in their bed of muscles like twin buried arrowheads of feathers. Oh. No, I think there's been a bit of time, but Anne has asked me to read The Frog Prince, which is a proper horrible poem. It's kind of disgusting. I've been told by a writer I really love and respect, but she was like, "You can't publish this. This is horrible." If your daughter, it's trying to envision my daughter having a wonderful, rich sex life years in the future, increasingly less years in the future, of course. But I'd happily read it. Are there any other questions or requests?
I think earlier on, Felicity asked,
sorry, I missed it.
Is it necessary to suffer in order to create?
Hi, Felicity. What do you think? Do you think it's necessary to suffer in order to create?
Probably.
I go on.
I think it does. Think of Wagner as well. Love, death, and sex. But your poems are terribly moving.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't know if it's. Do you know what? Right now, people often say. I remember when my mum was dying. People were like, "God, this." Even she herself said, "At least you've got something to write about now," which is fun. And you know, everybody was like, "Fuck, I didn't do anything. I was just too sad, going around being sad." Right now, coronavirus, it's like everybody's, "Woohoo, we're living in the apocalypse. You can write your great novel," and I bet you lots of people are writing loads of stuff. And I wonder if it's any good. I do not have time to. I can't do a poo on my own at the minute with all the kids in the house and all the things that I've done. I generally have a baby with me while I go to the toilet. So, and it's not just me, even people who live on their own. If I was living on my own, I would be flat out on either dating websites or something to take away the ring of the void. So I think some suffering, loads of suffering, like depression or something, I don't know if I could cope with it. I feel really lucky. I'm a white man of my age. I finally have a wage, you know, which has changed everything. I think if you're not writing about suffering, then you need tension. Something has to go bad. If there's no, you know, when sometimes students write about sex, and of course they should because it's good life, but it's also, if you just write about a lovely sex scene and everything's cheerful, wonderful, great. I mean, that's good in real life, and I hope it's all like that in real life, but Jesus, it's just indulgent if you write about everything's lovely. No, there's got to be something tension. Something has to be losable, I think, for us to engage in art, for us. There's a buy-in, and if you don't have that hook of this is what we lost, and often I think you're right, that is through pain, isn't it? That, you know, if you don't think when you're watching, I don't know, Liam Neeson, if you don't think his daughter might die, then you're not going to enjoy seeing him punch Romanians. I think pain has to be an art, but I think if you're really depressed or totally busy, you can't write. Does that make sense? Maybe some people do. I'm sure they do. Anne Frank did, for God's sake. You know, so maybe I'm just lazy. What do you think?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm just wondering, if you think about Bach and what he created through his life, did he suffer? You'd have to go into the biographies of people, wouldn't you, to know?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just talking about poetry, music, art.
You could be right. I mean, all music and art is tension, isn't it? It's tension between the word and the other. Even like da 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 da. That's Jaws, isn't it? But da, da. If you don't have the da, I mean, you guess you just. But you need, it's the tension of hearing the note resolved. No, isn't that like basic sonata form? You know, you're the musician, isn't it? You have the A1 No, the A and then the A1, and you need the B to give us relief.
Yeah,
you
you have to.
the A, or the tension's not
You
resolved.
have to move from dissonance to consonance. Yes.
And if there's no
Always
dissonance,
got to be the clash. The
aye.
music won't move on. Yes.
Yeah. Now, there's 2 requests come in for me to read poems. Shall I read The Frog Prince and Jubilati Columbidae?
Yeah, go for them. And I think someone else asked if that you could read your favourite poem as well, if you haven't already.
It's not by me. I guess I should. I don't know what my favourite poem is at the minute. I mean, I really like, if anybody's come across Hera Lindsay Bird, I really like her book. Again, it's really cursy, but she's written a wonderful poem. I don't have it at the minute, called, I'm just being rude now, but it's a really good poem. Look up Keats is Dead, So Fuck Me From Behind. It's a really good poem. I'm not just being crass. It is really good. Do you know what? I'm going to read you a poem because it's about drowning my child. That's probably my favourite in the collection. Although I like a lot of them. I know that sounds vain. I beg your pardon, but let me see. Okay, I'll read this. Oh no, I always read that one. Right. I'll read The Beast of the Galapagos. It is a really complex form, and Jeepers Creepers, I've forgotten what the form is called now. It's not a villanelle and it's not a sestina, but it folds in on itself. It keeps repeating its own line, and it's called a rondo. Amy, come on, help out. Is that a rondo? I should know this. I teach poetry. It's called The Beast of the Galapagos, and it's about, as I'm sure has happened to many of you, you've nearly drowned your child. Or maybe the child does drown. You know, you take them out. Maybe it's only fathers do that. They carry a child into the water and then lose the child. So that anyway, it's called The Beast of the Galapagos. I bear her over the mad waves, her armbands left on the sand. She squeals like an otter pup, and I miss the breaker behind her, armbands left on the sand. As she crashes from my reach, and I miss the breaker behind, my throat fills with the ocean. As she crashes from my reach, like wreckage, Europe, meteors, my throat fills with the ocean, awash with viruses and floods, like wreckage, Europe, meteors, through the genealogical chain, awash with viruses and floods, and the only humans to surface through the genealogical chain. Gnash crabs with blunt molars, and the only humans to surface, oval eyes rolling in flat skulls. Gnash crabs with blunt molars, rising groggily from the depths, oval eyes rolling in flat skulls. And my fingers stroke her skull, rising groggily from the depths, twisted blind in breathlessness. And my fingers stroke her skull, and I brush her against my ribs, twisted blind in breathlessness. She squeals like an otter pup, and I bruise her against my ribs. I bear her over the mad waves. I'm going to read 2 more poems now. It was The Frog Prince, which is truly horrible, and Jubilati Columbidae. I haven't read many of the Pigeon ones, so I beg your pardon for that. I really like the Pigeon ones, and I can see why. I think, Amy, were you suspicious of them at the start? I think they're weird. The whole book is about pigeons. I'll let you buy so you can read them through. The Pigeon ones are weird. But beg your pardon. Here's my favorite poem in the book. It is, let me find it. Sorry. It's about the dirty pigeon. Why did I write about the pigeons? Because they are dirty. They are disgusting. We hate them. And yet they live. You never see any animal as bruised. If you saw a dog as damaged and diseased as those dirty pigeons you see in stations, you know, the ones with half an eye and the face is all boils and they've got no foot. Sometimes they miss both feet. They're horrific what's been done to them. And they're still there picking through your trash. They're still there. And you know they'll be up on the windowsill trying to get a ride very quickly. They are what is done to them, and they live. They fight to live and to continue, and I think that's amazing. And so I think that's something we can only aspire to be as obsessed with sex and survival, isn't it? What more do you want? So this is the pigeon on the rafters of the station of the metro. And it's in the voice of a pigeon. Who should be dead and cobble trod last winter. One leg, a stump and half a face, a boil in tumours, drops curious this new hour off the station rafters, who knows the kickers from the fodder droppers, and loops one group of diners to one empty table over, now to tug a bagel from the bagel paper, encropped with grit and gum and bits of whopper, and a breeze down the gates ruffles up whose feathers. Rainy salt air of the city rolling death comes quicker, poisoned corn and spikes stuck in dry corners, wide sky up dark the tumbling clouds of harbour. Better live here, where dust silts for watching over. Better learn the patterned rabble dropping fodder. Who fucked it once, hops each new day thereafter. And shall I... Okay, I'll do two more. I beg your pardon. Listen, but I'll do two more, and I'll do them quick without much sting in between. I'll do the Frog Prince and Jubilati Columbidae. Thank you so much for coming again, and thank you, Sarah, for all your work, and Amy for all your work, and all of these guys for coming. These have been absolutely brilliant. And I beg your pardon. I wish we could go to the pub after this and have a pint, and we will. I hope to meet you all in the pub at some point after the apocalypse, and so we can. Let's hope the right people survive. Let's hope we all survive. But let's, of all the things to say, I beg your pardon, let's hope we all make it through, and I'm sure we will, and then we will hopefully go to the pub. So thank you. Let's start with the Frog Prince, which is envisioning my daughter having, as I hope she will, rich, they all will, there's three of them now, have rich and varied sex lives. The Frog Prince. There is nothing that can be done in this green world about a boy with a stench of pond water in his burps, creaking to your daughter's ensuite while she sleeps, where he stumbles upon a leak in his jellied sheath, and his eyes bulge like spawn dilating in the mirror, envisioning a foam of his own generational matter stewing inside her as tadpoles stew in shallow water. And the world darkens as he struggles to remember a story about a pond so green it was almost brown, and how the fern tips rattled as a frog pushed down past their pale roots, reaching the pond's rank bottom, where a golden ball blazed a nova in the pond scum, and it thunders outside, and a sudden thump of green webs the skylight and fractures, reddening at the seams, as beyond the curtains the suburbs bathe in a holy rain, frogs splattering on jeeps and bird baths in bony stains. And the middle classes stare across their bloodied patios, and you skid off the tarmac, trapped inside your Volvo. And on the bonnet, a lone frog is bellowing, unharmed, in a world cartwheeling with wild dogs and car alarms. And your daughter raises her head to ask what is amiss, and the boy croaks, halfway between a ribbit and a kiss. The last poem of the night. So thanks all again. There's the books. You get a discount if you buy them with the ticket stub. Somehow you get a discount through the Seren website if you buy them through there. And I've had more good news today. I know I'm being a slabber, I shouldn't say it, but there's this prize, an Irish prize, and I've won £1,000 already, but I might get £10,000. But you know what? It's the acclaim, etc., etc. It's also £10,000, but you know, it's so it's nice. Well, hopefully we'll see if I get it. I don't know, and if I don't, it's brilliant anyway. But thanks, Sarah and Amy. It's your work that's helped me get that to this place. Jubilati Columbidae, which means in Latin praise for the pigeon, and it's a poem praising pigeons. And if you know the poem Jubilati Agno, you might get some sub-references, but basically it's just a poem saying pigeons are cool. Thanks very much. I woke this morning with a vibration in my lungs, as if my chest were a dome of murmuring pigeons, and one cut through the edges of my concentration, and now my throat swells to her soft clarion. For she is grey as smoke out of a gun, for she bothers soldiers around the garrison, but is too light to carry more than vital information. For she breeds on any surface she can find a purchase on, and there is no city that she has not found a purchase on. For she turns half of her face to every new commotion, as her other eye makes sure her getaway is open. For she startles from the eaves without provocation. For she flaps like the hymnals of an eager congregation. For she eavesdrops in the church and in the train station. For her shit is a reminder of all that comes unbidden. For thus she warns pedestrians to turn their eyes to heaven. For she kisses out of hunger, which is prudence in affection. For she eludes starvation. For she is amicable, both free and in captivation. For she can practice patience in the pockets of magicians. For she elicits tenderness in the burliest of men. For in the palm she has the delicacy of engines. For she does not panic as the traps are sprung. For she rotates about her axis to find a point on the horizon. For in her sinuses she bears a mote of magnetic iron. For this will bring her home. For she will come home.
Thank you very much, Eoghan, for the splendid poems. Beautiful. And thanks everyone for coming.